What's happening, everyone? It's the Sportcast. It's me, Andy Grant. We've got Gary Judge from Across the Park podcast. Apologies, it's on StreamYard for anyone who's watching it, but that time of year, Christmas, we're both mad busy, and this is the only way we could do it. And we did want to get a show because there is so much to talk about. We've got football, Everton flying, Liverpool in another semi-final. You got talks of the Sports League. Anyone who's listening, Gary's giving me the fingers with Liverpool in the semi-final. We've got this Super League, European Super League, talking again. BBC Sports Personality of the Year. We've got boxing, one of the biggest boxing weekends, I think, ever. We've got UFC to touch on. And there's a 16-year-old in darts who's absolutely flying.
Don't mention the darts, mate. That time of the year. The only thing that matters to me at this time of the year is the darts. And Christmas.
Yeah. And there's a 16-year-old who's absolutely flying. So there's quite a bit to get through, mate. First off, we didn't do one last weekend. All good?
Yeah, all good, mate, yeah. Unlike yourself, not on that exciting happened for me last weekend.
You wasn't partying with Stormzy and my Jama, no?
No, not recently. The week before, maybe something like that happened, but I can't remember.
Mate, should we start? Where do you want to start then? We've got footy, boxing, UFC. Where should we start?
Let's start with the UFC because that was you asked me how I am. I guess ask you how you were, and if I did ask you how you were, you'd obviously talk about the last weekend and being drunk for the rest part of 5 days, I think.
Yeah, I mean, notable shout out to Paddy for sorting his tickets. Got to meet all his mates again, which I did last year. Unbelievable weekend, or long weekend, I should say. Just 3 nights for me in Vegas with the original founder, Tom Wickstead of the Legged Podcast. Me and him went out there, had a brilliant time, full of Scousers in Vegas, which was great to see, and just had an absolute scream. Topped off by the fact that Paddy and both Leon Edwards as well put on a show for the Brits, which was brilliant. You know what I will say first and foremost about the UFC? The Americans are crazy when it comes to Donald Trump. I've learned that if you didn't know already, they are absolutely batshit crazy about him. And it just made me think that, if there was ever a big, massive boxing event on in England, and whether it was, Rishi Sunak or Tony Blair, if they'd walked into a boxing arena the way Donald Trump did, it just would not happen in England as it does here. Like, literally, mate, I was in, the lounge having some food, and then Donald Trump come on the screen. Everyone is getting up off the seats, running, screaming. I've seen nothing like it. It was absolutely insane.
Screaming, in admiration and respect.
Oh, mate, yeah. That kind of part of the world, they all absolutely love him. And where I was sitting, you could see him in a suit. He's got his red tie, and you could see him. It was just like, that just made the night a bit weird, thinking that Donald Trump's sitting there. Anyway, the night cracks on. Some brilliant fights, by the way. There was 2 girls who fought. I'm going to be really rude and forget the names, but oh my God, what a show it was.
Prelims?
No, it was I think yesterday was the last one in the prelims. It was, yeah. The second to last girl fight in the prelims. The ladies absolutely smashed it. But then the main fights we were there for were Paddy and Leon. Paddy's intro, I stand by saying it's the best intro, I think, on the whole UFC roster. It's unbelievable. That song gets the whole crowd going. Everyone's loving it. He comes in and just absolutely dominates the whole 3 rounds against Tony Ferguson. Just absolutely dominates him. And there was a video I've got, and I've kind of zoomed in on the video, and Donald Trump's right there, and Paddy the Baddy's just laying in Tony Ferguson. And there was a bit, and I'm thinking, there's arguably the most famous man on the planet watching a lad from Huyton stove someone's head in. It was just like a mad little thing. But then, yeah, Paddy just absolutely dominated, which was great to see. He had loads of mates, loads of support out there. He ends up partying with them through the night. It was brilliant. And then it went on to the main event, which was Leon, which was the biggest snore fest I've ever seen in my life. It was horrendous, to be honest. Buzzing that Leon got the win, but it was a really, really boring fight. I think it was is it Duplessis and Strickland? I think it was in the had a little fight, a little melee. They landed more blows than in the main event. I think it's safe to say. But buzzing to see Leon get the win. I think he dominated the fight, or at least 3 or 4 of the rounds maybe. And I think it did bring into question, I think, a lot of Kobe's character as well. I don't know if you've seen in the press conference beforehand, he made a sly dig about Leon's father, who sadly passed away. And I thought that was an interesting debate to kind of go, at what point does things go too far? You know, his whole idea was to say something that would get under Leon's skin, and it certainly did, as I think as it would for 99 people. It obviously didn't work in the long term, though, because Leon was able to keep his head and put on a really dominant performance and defend his belt, you know, on away territory, which was great to see. I think the first Brit to ever do that. So, I mean, at what point, in your opinion, it's all about opinions, but at what point does something go too far? Do you know what I mean?
I think you make a good point that, you know, it didn't get to Leon, and I think if I was in Leon's shoes, and I think this is the way that he's seen it, if your opponent has to stoop that low, he's almost showing his own hands, isn't he, to go that you think that you'd have to say something so personal to try and affect me. I don't know. I'm almost of the opinion that I don't think there is a line these days. I don't think there is. It's all in. They always say, don't they, particularly after the fight, it's all in the, you know, in the spirit of trying to, you know, get attention, you know, improve the box office, all that type of thing. And it does. It generally does have that impact, doesn't it? Most of the time, I don't think in the cold light of day, when they've all been paid and everything like that, that it really makes a blind bit of difference. I think if you actually any of the stuff that some of them are saying, like, how do this to your bears or do this to that, obviously that there's a line, isn't it? You know, if you actually physically do things, but it's you know, it's almost like a bit of a. And I said this to you when we were talking about it with boxing. It's just a bit like a throwback to the old WWE thing, you think? Or WWF, it wasn't when we were growing up. They used to say mad stuff and that, didn't they? It was like lashing chairs at people and that. It did used to really have the effect of getting people to buy WrestleMania or whatever it was back in the day.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I totally agree with you, Gary. I don't think there is a kind of line. I think it's, you know, all's fair. As horrible as that may sound to some people, I think, you know, you're doing everything you can to get under your opponent's skin. And I just don't think there is a line, because I think if he wins that fight, I think the first thing he does is apologise to Leon. I think if Kobe wins, I think the first thing he'd do, he goes, listen, sorry what I said. I needed to get under your skin. You're a great champion. You know, I did what I did. I'm sorry. I think he comes out with something along the lines of that. He doesn't. He looks. Yeah.
And the stuff he said was nothing like that. It was just jovial stuff, and it was like personally about him, not his family. But
yeah,
right.
And I think what made it even funnier was when he never won the fight and he put on a pretty lackluster performance, and the crowd, you know, were not happy. The crowd were booing him. He turns around on his speech and he's like, "Fuck you all anyway. You're all fucking bums anyway." You know what I mean? He's like, "I don't care if you boo me, go back to your bum life." And I was just like,
I love that as well. I think that's great.
So he clearly just says what he needs to say to, you know, the whole Donald Trump support. I think he does all that just to try and get a bit of clout, make some more money. And in one sense, fair play to him. I think he's a scumbag for saying what he did, first and foremost. But I understand it, and I'm just glad he got beaten. I'm glad Leon put on another dominant performance, which is great to see. I think going forward, speaking to Paddy's team, I think the next fight will be looking at like a top 15 opponent maybe. So I think that's where Paddy's going with his career now, which is great. Leon will obviously keep defending his title, but just what a time for the lads in the UFC. Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant, and deserved for Paddy as well. He's come up the hard way, you know, through Cage Warriors, and he's, you know, certainly won enough fights and got enough attention now in the UFC to earn those fights. And now it gets interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're now going to see how good he actually is. I'm not saying he's not, you know, earned respect for his victories already, but, you know, when you start getting into top 15 territory and you're potentially in a fight or two's time, maybe headlining a bill, that's when it's really, you know, in the serious territory of world class athletes and you know, potential world championships. So hats off to him again. You know, the pressure was on for me. You know, it was. Regardless of Tony Ferguson's status in UFC history, a lot of people were saying, you know, after his last fight, he was finished. Yeah, it was a little bit of tapping for Paddy, but credit to Tony Ferguson, he got himself fit. He was a tough opponent for Paddy, as he says in the post-fight interview. Even though Paddy was on top for those, you know, the large proportions of those second or third rounds, you know, Tony Ferguson passed guard a few times and still could have hit Paddy from the position he was in. And he's one of the best fighters, or has been one of the best fighters in the UFC on his path. So, you know, it was no mean feat to stay on in that position for such a period of time. I mean, the level of concentration that requires, coming from someone who's not, you know, an actual MMA fighter, but appreciating that is, you know, it's no joke. That, so fair play to him.
So after the UFC event, Leon Edwards had his after party at the Win.
Oh yeah, you got it through, but
you got the beers? I got out tonight with your missus. I've got my little girl. I'm doing a Nando's tonight, so it's a cup of tea for me. So after the event, we go back to the Win. Leon's got his party there. If anyone's been to Vegas, XS is a brilliant nightclub. The kind of, for anyone who hadn't seen my Instagram this week, we bump into Maya, Jama and Stormzy. And you know what, I've done a thing. You know, I saw it on, I think it might have been Kevin Hart said something. He said, if you'd ever see a celebrity, rather than just go over with your camera in the face, ask for a selfie, you know, say to them like, you know, I just want to say I'm a big fan or whatever. So I've done exactly that. I said, guys, I'm not just going to ask for a photo. He said, I just want to say I'm a big fan, Stormzy, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I think they liked it and then started saying, oh, mate, what's your name? You know, what are you here for? Etc. We got chatting. We were chatting genuinely for like 5-10 minutes. I told them like the tattoo you'll never walk story, got them laughing. And then I said to them, right, I obviously would love a photo, but I said, Stormzy, bit of an honesty shout from you. I said that only grab me a picture if you're impressed by me 5 and 10K times. And he's a big lad, Stormzy, like he's even bigger in person. You can tell he looks after himself. And he's working out his 5K time and he's thinking blah, blah, blah. He's looking at me and he's like, He goes, no way you're doing 5K in over 25 minutes. And no way you're doing 10K in over 45.
In less than 25.
Yes, sorry, in less. And I said, well, actually, I said, meet me 5K time. Oh, sorry, and that was it. At that point, I said, if I can impress you with me times, and Maya Jama went, I'll give you $500. And I went, no, I only wanted a photo. Like, I don't want no money off you. And she was like, no, you know, he's dead hard to impress when it comes to that. So if you impress him, you know, there's your $500. And I said, right, Stormzy, so go on. I've got to be less than your 25 minutes that you think, 5K. He says, yeah. I said, I can do it in 18:07. And he's like, what? Fuck, man, no chance. And we have a good laugh over that. Maya goes, right, there's your $500.
Do you not ask for proof? They just get the videos up or get the internet bits up, or you just like...
I don't even think I did. I think they were just like, I'd obviously told them the story and all that, and they were just like, yeah, fair play to you, mate. So Maya tried to give me $500. I said, I'm not taking $500 off you, Maya, do you know what I mean? I said, we'll gamble it together or something, put it on red, and then we'll give it to someone, like outside, one of the homeless or something. She said, oh, Andy, there you go. The deal's a deal. We're going anyway, we're going to a different club. So there was 7 of us at this point now. We walk to excess, and I just get the $500 straight away, put it on red. Straight away, red comes in, $1,000. That just sends us on our way to the nightclub. So it was, so Maya and Stormzy helped us for a great night. Right. The homeless person didn't get $1,000. I feel bad about saying, but I did give him 50 at the end of the night, but he didn't get the 1,000. But what happened as well, the last thing I did want to say, the only reason I brought up the nightclub in was because I met, I never say his name, Volkanovski. Can I never say his name, Volkanovski. Met him in the club, mate, and I did say, I said, can I just have a quick word? And I just said to him, I thought you were so amazingly brave to come out and talk about your mental health the way you did. I said, when I came out the military, I said, I had a couple of years where I really struggled with my purpose, knowing who I was. I said, I was drinking too much and, you know, things around me just weren't going right. And I really, really struggled. And I said, I felt like where you were. And mate, we're in the middle of this nightclub and we're talking into each other's ears as you're doing the nightclub, and just said, oh, mate, I'm really sorry to hear what you went through. And I'm glad that, you know, you kind of understood where I was coming from. And he was just saying, you're all good now. And I said, yeah, I feel a lot better now. I found myself again. He said, oh, but you? And he's like, yeah, I'm in a much better place. And I just thought, mate, a packed club, and he just gave me, you know, only 2 or 3 minutes of his time. But I just thought, what a man, do you know what I mean? Really, really impressive guy to be around. And I thought, just kind of made me night, you know what I mean? Seeing Paddy win, Leon win, Maya ends up funding the boys' night, and then we meet him in the club. It was a pretty special weekend, mate.
Class that, yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to be special when you do weekends and you go to Vegas. There's nothing something incredible that happens.
Yeah.
But no, fair play. I'm amazed up you made the most of it.
No, we'll get on that date next year, mate. It's always the December one, so we'll do an Andy Grant, Gary Judge and Muskie one next year. Yeah. We'll finish off in the boxing then, shall we? Because it's obviously going to be a massive one. So if we touch on the footy, Mate, do you want to start off and tell me what the fuck is going on in your football club? What's like, why is it just turned into Man City overnight or something? What is it, 4 wins on the spin? Was it or something like, what the hell is going on?
I mean, anyone who's been listening to our sportscast certainly earlier in the season will know that I've not been concerned. Maybe there was a moment when the 10 points was coming in, I was thinking, oh, this could be a bit iffy, but I think generally we've done okay since the start of the season. We weren't taking our chances in the earlier games. Obviously, we had no Calvert-Lewin, Decore was injured, McNeil was injured. All the players who are having a big impact now. I just think he's found a system, as he's done at Burnley in a different way. He's found a system that suits the players, suits the personnel, that the fans can get behind, because it's not whether you believe it or not, or whether the media will have it this way. It's not just long ball footy. We're not having much possession, but the reason we're not having much possession is we move the ball quickly. Do you know what I mean? We're not holding on to the ball and passing it and getting it back and passing it again. It's just going forwards quickly, directly. There's not many players in the team, with the exception of McNeil, that dribble. Therefore, we don't have the ball for long periods of time. We just get it in the box, and when we create chances. I genuinely,
I'll be honest, mate. I can't believe you're up there, mate. I mean, I know you never were worried, but I genuinely was thinking there is not a chance. With the problems you were having up front, you throw in the 10-point deduction. I thought there's not a chance that you're surviving relegation this year. And I mean, you should be 10th now? I think 9th or 10th if you haven't had that.
Yeah, we've been joint 8th, I think. Wow. And I think only like 4 points behind 6th. So it has been
crazy.
It is crazy. It has been. You could say it's been a remarkable upturn, but if you're a person who follows the stats, the XG has not changed really since the start of the season. So you could argue that, look, he's put together a system in the summer. The players have bought into it. They understand what they want, throwing on and off the ball, and almost to the letter since the start of the season, they tried to deliver it. I think probably the most disappointing performance of the season was at Anfield, and that was probably down to the fact we lost a man, and I couldn't really do much. So yeah, it's pleasing, but it's just rewards, I think, for the manager and the staff, and certainly the players who've put the work in. And the fans, particularly the ones who go home and away, nothing better for them. I've seen a stat that I think some of our fans had seen 4 away wins in like 2 years. We've seen 4 away wins on the bounce now. Yeah. So it's
as much as I joke and have a bit of banter, like, listener support, like, especially for the away fans, and that they deserve better than that. And it's a crazy stat. What I will have to harp on about 2 little bits of bad news though. First being the semi-final defeat to Fulham. I actually got a bit of shit in our group chat. I actually wanted you to go through because I thought it's going to make a cracking semi over 2 legs or even a final. It would have been great. A Merseyside final, I think, is something I hope to see once in my lifetime. I really do. And I thought it was bang on for you, especially when Fulham missed their pen. And then it's just absolutely, it's got to be one of the worst pens you've ever seen.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, anyone who's following this, who follows our podcast account, will have seen us post something. I say us because it wasn't me. It was Millsy who I do the podcast with, saying, look, he's a young lad, he's made a mistake. It's regrettable, but that's the player he is. He's got that kind of arrogance about him, the way he carries himself. I wasn't in that camp. I'll be honest. I thought it was a, ill-timed, foolish decision to try and take a pen like that in a game that meant so much to the club, to the fans, and was, as you say, was such a good opportunity to get into a domestic cup final for the first time in, 16, 17 years. In fact, 2023. 17 years or whatever. So it was poor. I don't know whichever way you're going to look at it. Poor. I'm not of the belief that we should be completely turning on him, but he deserves to dwell on that and understands that it was a terrible error of judgment to try and take a pen in such a lackadaisical way. Yeah, look, there's a lot of people who've got that style of the staggered run up and, rolling the ball one way. But for me, that's perfected that. Jorginho does it. Yeah. Perfects it. And the odd time it doesn't come off for him. Now, what I would say is if he does that regularly in training, and he does it to Jordan Pickford, who's pretty good at saving penalties, then you could argue, you know what, that's the way you've got to take that then. But if he's never done that before,
yeah,
it shows to roll it out in that situation. He needs, you know, I hope that his teammates in some way, shape, or form give him a right go on it, because it was sickening for the fans, and because that was good.
Which has meant, sorry, before then we move on then, but so the other negative thing I'll say, and I don't want to dwell too much on this because it's all if, buts and maybes, but I'm speaking to someone I know who's in the kind of accountancy world, if you like, a friend of mine, his business, I'm not sure what he actually does, but he knows of someone who does something with the kind of football teams, the Premier League, and this 777 thing isn't going away. And I don't know what you've heard, but they're not going to fund anymore, I've heard, from after Christmas. The Premier League haven't okayed it yet. And the information I was getting was that this isn't over by a long stretch, and these fines and this potential administration and where the fuck's this money coming from is going to start rearing its head again, which is really unfortunate, as given everything we've just said. But after speaking to my mate, he's like, I don't know what Everton are going to do in this new year, because they're not going to have any money soon as 777's done pumping this money in.
I mean, look, there's loads of ifs, buts and maybes, I think, with any situation. I think the one thing that's simple, you're not wrong, the cash flow situation is dire at Everton at the moment. I'm not naive enough to think that if an offer, in fact, I'll go further than that, I'm not naive enough to think that the club won't be alerting other clubs that we potentially sell one of our big assets in January. I don't think that's off the table. I think if the club look at it and go, if we don't raise 50 million, we're not getting through the rest of the season without 777, then they've got to take that decision. I think if it's Brandthwaite, if it's an honour, it's unfortunate, obviously, but that might have to happen. That said, 777 won't hesitate to keep putting that money in if they believe that the sale is realistically on the table, because there's a lot more juice in the club once we get past the summer and we get over the period that we're in. So
I get that, but there's got to be a point though where they're thinking we might not even pass the tests in the end, and might not get.
That's what I mean, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Two sides. If we're not going to realistically, if the club doesn't believe that 777 are going to pass the suitable owner test or whatever it is, then the club have got to cash in on one of the assets in January, and that, to be fair, is one of two players. It's Brandthwaite and Onana. One of those two will, if not both of them, could get us a fee of 50 million plus.
I suppose, though, the good thing is you got yourself in a position now where you could sell two of your star assets and you're going to be all right now.
I don't think we need to sell both of them in January. I think if you believe the stories, if you like, it's I think 500,000 or 600,000 a day at the moment that the club is potentially short, which, is 3.5 million quid a week, 12 million, 13 million or whatever a month. We just need to get to the summer is what I've been told. And again, a bit of the debt is cleared, the interest on some of the loans goes away, the stadium in where you can start to commercialise some of the stuff that's going on around it. So I think it's something like a £50 million shortfall between Christmas and the summer, which is no joke. Obviously, if you haven't got someone or you haven't made a bit of cash to be able to pay those bills.
It's a shame, innit, because there's so much positivity on the field, but I just did want to bring you up about that. But some fingers crossed it works out. Maybe we'll go across the park then to Liverpool. We had the 0-0 draw against United. I think that's, I think everyone was almost a bit, slowly to start feel confident. If we beat United, we stay top of the league, and knowing that we've got Arsenal coming up this week, you're in a semi-final of the League Cup. It's like, come on. Then, you get stuck with a 0-0 draw, United. Jurgen Klopp's come out and said that, it was pretty, or Gary Neville come out initially and said that the atmosphere was pretty dire, considering it was Liverpool, Man United. We've then played in West Ham in the League Cup, and Klopp come out and said that, the atmosphere was dire, we need something. So I think if we leave the football for a second and just speak about from a fan point of view, I think it's pretty disappointing to where Gary Neville come out and have a pop at the Anfield atmosphere, and then have your own manager come out and double down on what Gary Neville said. It doesn't make us feel great, I'll be honest. What I'll come back, though, and say to Neville, I mean, I didn't see the United game, but apparently the game is really flat anyway, and it's like, you know yourself, sometimes when the game's just flat, it's just hard to get going as a fan base. It's just, sometimes, you know, you can't be on it all the time, even if it is Liverpool United. When it comes to West Ham, I think once you're in a commanding, you know, lead in that sense, again, the game can kind of go flat as well. It's a game you're expected to win. I just think Klopp has been a bit of a knob, to be honest. Listen, he's great in 99% of the things he's done for the club, but he's done it a couple of times where, in the summer when we missed out on Bellingham, and he made some kind of remark and said people need to understand that, you know, you don't always get a Rolls Royce or something every time you want a new car. He said something along the lines of that, which was bullshit, because we've been linked with him and there've been talks going on for years, but then he kind of made out that Liverpool fans were being mega unrealistic. But it was like, I thought that was a bit stupid. And he's come out again and said this, which I think it doesn't read well on the back of what Gary Neville said. But also, there's so many other things to take into account. I just don't get why he's had to come out and say that, you know what I mean? He's on about behind him, for example, in the main stand. You're not even allowed to stand up half the time in the main stand anyway. I stand in the cop, so I'm all right standing up. But for one, you can't even stand up anyway before a steward tells you to sit down. He's on about saying, give your ticket to someone else. Do you know how hard it is to try and send a ticket to one of your mates on that new ticket and that's what you've got? Do you know what I mean? He's just talking about things that he hasn't really got a clue about, and listen, why should he know what?
He's unlikely. He normally declines to comment on things that he doesn't fully understand, doesn't he? Or he tends to get the right side of it.
And I just think it's bullshit though. Sorry, it's just bullshit in the sense that on one hand, you know, Liverpool, you know, the owners and the manager, they want this all-action, famous cop Anfield atmosphere that is renowned all around the world. But then on the other hand, they want the money that the tourists bring in. Right, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get lads from Bootle, Kirkdale, Huyton, Kirby going to Anfield and spending £100 in the club shop every week and buying loads of burgers and you're going to get scals going there, you know, like me and the rest of the lads who are going there, getting in the ground a minute before the game and creating the best atmosphere possible. You can't have your cake and eat it, do you know what I mean? And
it's not fair to say then you can't have your Bellinghams then and have your atmosphere as well.
Yeah, there probably is a case to that, yeah, but at the minute we're in no man's land though, because we're not getting the Bellinghams and then they're still having a moan about it, so it's like the atmosphere, so it's a bit, I just thought it was a bit crass him coming out saying that. He didn't.
Yeah, I thought as well, I'm not fully up to speed with this, but there's still obviously a bit of a there's still a big issue with the Anfield Road stands, isn't there? Isn't part of it still open and stuff? That doesn't help, does it? You know, when you've got a big gap in the stadium and it kind of feels a little bit cold because of that. Yeah. The couple of things that, just from my perspective, I don't think Gary Neville was out of line. Not out of line. I don't think he was wrong.
No,
but what I will say, and this was a comment that was made by someone in our WhatsApp group today. I think your style of football this year is slightly different. It's a bit more like patience, control, and possession-based football. It is a little bit more like that. And I think that's a bit more difficult for fans to kind of get constantly excited about it, because it's not like you're building up to like momentum, do you know what I mean? And you're highly pressurising teams. So United was a classic example. You had loads of the ball, but it wasn't particularly high tempo. And I think fans are like, what good is it going to be us getting really aggressive? Yeah. We should be in that patient. Do you know what I mean?
Mate, and what does Klopp think? He's been so fortunate, as have we. And I think when the team's playing a certain way and the fans are at it, I think Anfield can be one of the most, you know, hospitable places to go to anywhere in Europe. Do you know what I mean? When there's that kind of vile, like, come on. Like the Barcelona game when Suarez and Coutinho back, we needed to score 4 goals. One of the best atmospheres I've ever been in. And we've been lucky enough, and Klopp's been lucky enough to experience these. But he can't expect that 4 or 5 days before Christmas playing West Ham when you're 3-0 up in the League Cup quarter-final. Do you know what I mean?
Right. The fans' behaviour is a reflection of what they see in front of them. They're seeing players flying into tackles and being dead aggressive and stuff in the style of play. they kind of follow suit with that.
Exactly.
Like you look, as you say, those famous atmospheres abroad, like Turkey and Galatasaray. It's not a dead slow tempo build up, is it? Like AC Milan, when you go there, always has a good atmosphere in San Siro. They're a bit more aggressive in the final third. Yet you go to, I don't know, you go to a Barcelona, it's a different atmosphere, isn't it? It's a bit more kind of passive because fans know they've got to be patient, waiting for an opportunity, and so it's, I don't know, I kind of,
I just think as well, mate. It's like you kind of, it's like with your missus or something. You know what I mean? You might kill each other. You know, you and your missus might kill each other behind closed doors, right? But you'd never come out and be like, do you know what I mean? It's like you kind of keep it in house. Why he's done that and told everyone? Because it's like Liverpool fans used to sing it to the United fans. You know, Fergie's right, your fans are shite. Do you know what I mean? Now he's just opened the door for that, and you know, Jurgen's right, your fans are shite. I'm just waiting for it now.
yeah.
That pissed me off. But
Yeah, that is it.
onto the actual football, mate. Apart from United, which again, just one of those things. But onto the kind of League Cup, and looking forward to Arsenal at the weekend. You know, great to have another semi-final in the bag. I wasn't aware it's over 2 legs as well, isn't it? I thought it was just one, but it's got the 2 legs. So I mean, you'd fancy us there over 2 legs against Fulham, which would mean another League Cup final. Fingers crossed, which would be great. I always think it's, if you can get a bit of a trophy in the bag, and I think it's normally March time, isn't it? Or even February it might be.
February is, yeah.
It can just really set your season, you know, off to a big finale, which hopefully it'd be great if we can get past Fulham. So that was a great performance. I thought the lads, you know, small bit of rotation. I thought he would have rotated a lot more, to be honest, but job was done. A few cracking goals as well. Soboslai's goal I thought was great. It takes us in now to the weekend against Arsenal. It's going to be what? I think it's an 5:30 kickoff. I think it is 4:30 maybe, or Saturday 4:30, 5:30. So an evening match.
We're playing at 3, so it must be the 5:30, won't it?
Yeah, so 5:30 on a Saturday night. You know, day before Christmas Eve. You know, the fans will have no excuses if Anfield's not rocking. You know, as I'm sure it will be. And I can't wait. You know, is this going to be a title decider? I think it's going to actually, believe it or not, I think it will go and have a massive say, because I've said it now for a few weeks. Man City are not the same Man City. Do you know what I mean? They're not. What was it, 2-2 against Palace, was it, last week? They had 2-0 up, and how many times have City been 2-0 up, and you just almost, you know, well, I unstarred them off my flash scores because it's done. You know, they've won. You can just stop following it. It doesn't happen often. They get pegged back 2-0 by Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace. So I do think this Arsenal game, you know, is now bigger than maybe it would have been if City were the old City. I think it's going to be tougher than, despite me kind of not thinking Arsenal are going to be in the title race. You know, they have had some plucky kind of performances where, a bit like Liverpool, they haven't been playing well, but they've got the results. Like Luton springs to mind. So I think it will be tough, but I do expect Liverpool to win. And I think the manner of the victory, if we can win, I think the manner will say a lot, because Arsenal have got so much hype around them. Everyone seems to be talking about either City or Arsenal. I think if Arsenal comes to Anfield and they get beat by 2 or 3 goals, I think it won't only, you know, derail their, you know, title challenge momentarily, but I think, you know, mentally it could be a massive blow to think, you know, we're up here, you know what I mean, Christmas Day, we could be top of the league and we get beat 4-0. I think it could be massive.
I agree. I think psychologically it would really hurt them. It would be a huge blow to them. I don't think to get beat, but I agree. I think if we go to Anfield and close game and they get beat by 1, I think they'll be able to quickly dust themselves off and go again. Yeah. But I agree with you. If you smash them like you did so many times in the early noughties and in the 90s when they came to Anfield, I think that'll really have a big impact, because I do feel, and I've seen this a few times on the Sportscast, I do feel like Arteta's broke through a little bit of a seal with some of them players. And some of them are starting to believe that they have got that bit more resilience and toughness to be able to, you know, go the stretch and to do a little bit better than they did last time. I said at the start of the season, and I think it's shown so far, that the sign of Declan Rice was invaluable to them. You've got a leader in there, someone with a bit of steel, someone who knows how to win, despite him being at West Ham. You know, he's almost pulled them single-handedly to a European trophy. He's done that with England as well. So yeah, I think I agree with him. I think it's huge for both of you. I think they'll be. It's an interesting one for Arteta, isn't it? Because I think if you offered him a draw now, he'd snap your hands off. But I think if you dangled the chance of maybe winning Anfield, what a huge statement that'd be for them.
So what are we thinking then? The weekend you've got Everton, Spurs against Everton.
Yeah.
Who's coming up, Merseyside or London?
I think it could be a share of the spoils. I fancy us to get a draw at Tottenham. I think it'll be a high score draw. 2-2 maybe even 3-3. I do think that they've got so many injuries at the back. I'd be shocked if we didn't score. And barring no sendings off, because I was actually speaking to a Spurs podcast today, and he was saying I'm just a bit worried in terms of the spectacle of the game. Both teams have got the capability of being quite aggressive. They obviously had that game a few weeks ago where they had a couple of men sent off against Chelsea. We had Ashley sent off in the Merseyside derby. We probably both got the tendency to maybe get a man sent off. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen because I think it could be a very good game. I agree with that. I do think a score draw is on the cards. I think you might nick it at Anfield. I think 2-1. I can see Arsenal scoring, but I think you'll probably just do enough. And I think in terms of this fixture, I think the Man United fixture is almost the best thing that could have happened here, because you've had that kind of a wall and the players have probably really hitting themselves. And I think you've seen that a little bit against the West Ham.
Bit of a reminder, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be complacent. No fixture in the Premier League, particularly against clubs like Man United, is a given.
No.
And I think the players will know they've got to be at the very best against Arsenal. I think that'll probably get the best out of some of your top players. Salah's due a performance, isn't he? For me, I mean, I don't go to every game, but it seems to me like he's getting goals, he's doing bits, but I don't think he's really lit many games up this season. And it could be one of them for him.
I'm gonna go with you in the sense that I'll pray for a high score draw. I think, given how Everton's form at the moment, and Spurs, apart from it might have been last week with what they'd lost 4 on the spin. I think draw is probably a fair shout. Let's hope it's a high score one with loads of entertainment in. And I'm hoping, Liverpool can. I think we will win, and I'm just gonna pray that it's a good 3-4, 5-0, which I think Liverpool could easily do. And if Arsenal, choke like they did last season, then you never know. So I'm going to go, draw for you lot and a win for the Reds. On that note as well, mate, which probably does affect Liverpool a bit more than Everton, the talk of the European Super League has reared its ugly head again, as FIFA and UEFA have been found that they, in the High Court, they basically said that it was unlawful for you to kind of knock back this new league. It should be given a chance almost because they had the monopoly on it and it shouldn't be allowed, etc. I just think, mate, it's a no-win situation for the Premier League, for the English teams, because I think what the 2 options I can see happening, and again, be interesting to hear your view on it with regards to the business side from your background, but let's just say they create this European Super League and you have your Barca, your Spanish teams, your Italian, your French, your German. That essentially then kills the Champions League. Now, the English clubs, we all start protesting again and we all boycott the stadiums, which means that we don't join. Okay, great. But now we don't have no Champions League. Or we do have a Champions League, but it's all the lesser teams that are maybe making up the Europa League. So then I think that the big clubs in England are then faced with, do we have to just jump ship and join this European Super League, or do we what? Because there is no more Champions League. So essentially it's going to be a one or the other. And I think that decision will come down the road for a few teams. I think it's just, there's so many questions, as it's only just been announced the last day or two. There's so many questions which I'm sure will be answered over the next weeks and months. But I mean, what happens? The teams still compete in the Premier League and the Champions League and the European Super League? I mean, do they only do one or the other? Do they do all 2? Or I just think it's just not good. I just don't think it's a good thing. The only thing I do agree with is that UEFA and FIFA shouldn't have just the divine right to kind of make tournaments and tell clubs where they're going and what they're doing. Of course they shouldn't. But this particular idea, I don't think is good, because it just opened the door, I think, to then Saudi to throw some money at it. And then it becomes almost, money talks. It almost becomes this European Super League that has, 5 games in the season that gets played in Saudi Arabia, and it just becomes less and less about the local fan and more about making as much money as possible.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you've said there. I think the only thing I would say is being a realist, and again, looking back in history the same way that we did with boxing and the WWA, WWF, wasn't that what the Champions League was in the first place? It replaced the European Cup, and it did it, whether we like it or not. It was about money. Let's get more teams in there. Let's create a group stage, which is more matches, which is more televised games, which again is more money. More teams come into it, which essentially, well, they didn't. There was a similar amount, but their idea was to try and get, give the lesser nations a platform. Then comes the Europa League, which again replaced the UEFA Cup. Some people didn't want that. Then there's the Conference League. It's went on and on. So I think 20 years ago, I think people were more, however many years ago, with the Champions League. It was 98 or 90. No, so well in the early 90s, I think, 94, something like that, when the Champions League first.
Early 90s it was, wasn't it?
Orban's were certainly won the first one, I think. I seem to remember. One of the first ones I remember. Karl-Heinz Riedler played for them, didn't he?
But
anyway, just by the way, I think there would have been more concerns back in those days as to where it was going than I think there should be about this. As you say, there's so much precedent now with other sports of new competitions coming up, everyone being concerned that that's the end of the sport, when it isn't. It's just the evolution of the sport. Now, probably being a bit more naive because of an Evertonian who's maybe not in, we haven't been in European competitions on a regular basis for quite a while. We'll be more affected by the division, the gap between us, likes of yourselves, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the sad thing is, what will probably happen is it won't be seen as much like we're in the same league anymore, because we won't be. But the argument is we haven't been in the same league for a long time. The bias that goes on, I'm not going to use the word corruption, but the bias towards the top 4 or the Sky 6 and whatever these have been called for quite some time has been around for a long, long time, way before this has come about. And it'll be around whether this happens or not. So I don't think it's the huge sensationalized story that it's being made out to be. I think it's inevitable that something's going to change. There's going to be another way of monetizing or making that gap a little bit bigger, because the likes of yourselves and that are not happy when there's something like a Newcastle, pops their head into the equation and tries to get involved. The likes of yourselves and the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Liverpools, the Man Uniteds, they want to keep that gap as it is. They want to stay at the top of that tree. And that's, let's be honest, if you're all sitting, it's like a mafia thing. You're all sitting around, the 5 families sitting around going, let's make sure we keep the money from our way. It's great though, these are doing quite well, but let's make sure that the money stays here. That's what it's about.
No, I get what you're saying, and yeah, I agree with that in that sense. I just think it's a shame for let's not sound like really old and, an idealist, but like it's just shit for the local fan, isn't it? It's like the local fan is just getting, what happens for like when you want to go on an away now, you'll be going abroad every other week. Do you know what I mean? I just don't know how it's going to work. For example, the whole history of the European Cup, what is the 4 or 5 English teams that have won the European Cup? Well, that'll be gone because there won't be any Champions League as we know it. It'll be called something else, and it's just, I don't know. Again, it's all if buts and maybes again, but I just, on the whole, I thought it's just a money grab once again, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks.
Definitely.
Before we move into the boxing, mate, one thing that was a little bit, congratulated on one aspect, but then maybe a little bit controversial on the other, was the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award was won for the 2nd consecutive year by a woman footballer. It was won by Mary, is it Eaps?
Mary Eaps.
Eaps. She plays in goal for Man United. She won Golden Glove, I think, like Player of the Year. I think Golden Glove in the tournament. Got to a final. A lot of personal accolades along the way.
It was more about it. It was more about. Do you know what? I'll let you have your piece in a minute. The one thing I'd say is the sports personality of the year should be what the name suggests. It's not about the best athlete. Believe it or not, it shouldn't be about the best athlete and the best achievements of the year. It should be about your impact, the impact of your personality, and the impact you've had on sport in general. Now, whether it's, I know and the joke about Andy Murray's got no personality, why is he in there? And Lewis Hamilton's got no personality. I believe it should be about, it should be more about your influence on sport and on society. And I think if you Jake Hill on a category, which is what that criteria, what it was supposed to be about, then there's nobody out there who's had a greater influence on society in the last year. Well, you know, that I'm sure there's other people there. There's very few into the bracket of having a greater influence on society than Mary Earps this year. The way that she fought at night to make sure that, you know, a female England jersey is sold and then sold it out consecutively because girls were looking to buy it and seeing her as a role model. That's admirable, and that's what that award should be about. So, obviously, your piece. But for me, I think it's a breath of fresh air that people, whether it's females or males, being recognised for the impact they have on the country and on society in general, and not just, oh yeah, I got 5 gold medals, or I won the Champions League, or I took my team to the World Cup. You've got enough medals for that. You get enough money for that. Why do you need a personality award to go with it?
No, listen, I don't think I can disagree with anything. I think the only thing I would say is, where does the kind of voting thing come from for these finalists, if you like? Because I don't think Jude Bellingham even got a sniff. You know, you look what he's done for England on the international scene. He's went over, applied his trade in a country. I think for any young man to go and live abroad and then go to the biggest club in the world, you know, start the season as he has with the awards he's made, and I'm sure the impact he's had on young footballers there and to see him and all that is similar in a way to, you know, what maybe.
That's what the Ballon d'Or's for. That's what the Ballon d'Or's for. That's what England caps are for. There's enough rewards for Jude Bellingham and enough recognition for Jude Bellingham without.
But that's almost saying, no. That's almost saying because she's in the women's game, they're not going to get enough recognition. So it just, I understand everything you're saying. It just feels a little bit to me. Number one, the fact like Leon Edwards wasn't on there. Do you know what I mean? He's only the second guy to win a British title in the UFC. He's the only guy to defend it abroad. And you look at his story, his personality, what he's overcome. I think that, you know, is amazing. But the fact that they're not even there to be voted for, I don't really understand why. I
think it can be perceived. Probably where you're going with it. It can be perceived that there's a bit of a
there's an agenda, I think, for women to get the win, is what I'm saying.
To favour women just for the sake that it's trying to address a gender imbalance, if you like. But then that creates a greater imbalance because you're not actually recognising males for
yeah, and that's what I mean. You know, you made some great points at some of the, you know, extreme, you know, efforts that she's done in her career this past year and the impact she's had socially on, you know, women's football, on young girls, on, like, you know, going head to head with Nike. I mean, all that shows great endeavour and personality. So on that end, yes, she does deserve to win it. But I think when you're the BBC and you're putting out potential 10 people who could get voted for, the fact that you kind of go and don't put Jude Bellingham in, don't put Leon Edwards in, put these in. And I think, no disrespect to the women's game, but all the sporting personalities and legends that have gone by these past 2 years, I find it very difficult to know that there's been 2 women who have been deserving both years and no men in any other sports. And I think that's just because of the kind of the angle that women's football have got at the minute.
Look, let's be honest. You don't have to be a rocket science, do you? And again, I call someone out to correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it'll be the makeup of the panel, won't it? The panel, yeah. People on that panel won't have a clue about the UFC. No one have a clue about certain, if you call it in this sense, minority sports. They won't have a clue about, you know, a certain demographic.
Ronnie O'Sullivan as well, like snooker. No one's got to be.
And that will have been the case. Darts. There's plenty of darts players that have done some remarkable things over the last 12 months. But again, it's all about the balance of that panel, isn't it? And I'm fairly certain that going back 5 years ago, there was probably no one on the panel who knew anything about women's football. Yeah. And you've been called out for that. And they've addressed it, but then they've addressed it to the extent that it probably means that other sports are now missing out.
So with that all in the bag, moving on to boxing for the last 10 minutes. Probably first to just mention last weekend, heartbreaking, especially for Muskie with it being in the family. We had Peter McGrail fighting over in, I think it was Phoenix, was it?
Why is that Phoenix, Arizona, yeah.
By all accounts, absolutely dominated the fight for 99% of it. Had the lad down twice, and out of absolutely nowhere, got caught, and it was pretty vicious knockout. If truth be told, it looked pretty nasty. Absolutely gutted for him. I think and trying to look at the positives for it. I think what I'm hoping is there was so much hype around him of how good he is, and there's so much kind of respect already on his name. I think as he kind of moves through in his career, there might have been that bit of, I'm not touching him. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going near him. He's on his way to the top. He's still got the O, and he's undefeated, and he might not have maybe got the fights that he needs to get. I think the fact now he's got a defeat on his record, I think hopefully, if we're trying to look at the positives, could work in his favour.
It can make him more matchable. I think you look at it from a personal point of view. When you're undefeated, it's almost like this. It's a bit like a weird monkey that's on your back. That until you are defeated, like that's all you care about. Now that he's been beat, it is what it is. He's lost the fight now. So what? Yeah. It shouldn't really matter. What it's about in boxing and in any sport is eventually being successful, eventually being world champion. That is the pinnacle for anyone.
Yeah.
There's so many fighters that go through a career and maybe go undefeated for 20 odd fights, then get to a world title fight and get beat, and then get beat in the next world title fight. That's all that matters. The world title fights are the ones that matters. Yeah. It's the same as your amateur career. You could be undefeated in the whole of your amateur career, but then never really make a good grow. So, from the comments he's made on social media, the comments that Muskie's made, and chatted to him about it, that's the way that they're seeing it in the camp. Is look, it's a lesson to learn. Yeah. It's a mistake he'll never make again. Not that it was necessarily a mistake, but I think if you get caught in the manner he did, there's a suggestion that he maybe just let his guard down slightly. He's a little bit got to that point. He knows he's won the fight. He's maybe looking for the kind of discreetly looking for the knockout himself, and he's left himself open. So
yeah,
I think it happened so early in his career, which it is relatively, in terms of where he's climbing.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of positives you can still take from that. A lot more positives than you can ever take from losing a world title fight. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He'd rather let that defeat now than he would do, going for a huge fight that's going to be the pinnacle of his career.
One fella that was unfortunate enough to lose a world title was Sonny Edwards. He lost to Jesse Rodriguez, who really dominant performance, and I think Jesse now could be the top guy for a while as well.
Yeah, and he started all right. I thought he was in the fight for period, but you could just see whenever Sonny got into the fight, Bam was ready. Do you know what I mean? And yeah. I think going into the fight, I did fancy Sonny Edwards. And I just think, I think he'd probably shown that he's not quite at that level, unfortunately. Which it is what it is. I'm not saying he was disgraced in the fight, but I think, yeah, as you say, I think it probably means now that Jesse Rodriguez steps away from that level, and he'll go on to some huge fights now, I think.
Before we look at this weekend, mate, one news which I'm particularly quite happy about is Eubank and Ben doesn't look like it's going to happen early next year. But this comes down to now commercial, some problems commercially, not being able to come to a deal with regards to that. So that to me says money grabbing bastards. But you know what? It's a fight that shouldn't happen anyway, so I'm glad it's not happening. To be honest, that come out, I think, last couple of days. It definitely won't be happening in February, so see what happens. And then with regards to this weekend, what are they billing this weekend as again? It's
not Resurrection, something mad like that, isn't it?
I don't know. It's in obviously Saudi where the money is, and you've got a lot of big fights. You've got Joshua against Wilder, against Dubois, Miller, and Bivol Arthur. At least boxing was putting on some sort of show after we slag for. I guess that is the positive, isn't it? There's a lot of really decent fights there.
Listen, that's as good a card as I've seen in a long, long time. Listen, I'm of the opinion that aside from some of the bigger domestic bouts which you want to see, I couldn't give you a toss where the fight takes place. If you can get boxes like that together on that type of card, I'm all for, fights taking place in Timbuktu. Well, it is what it is. You just want to see, like UFC, no one cares where it is. You just want to see a good card.
Yeah.
UFC managed to pull that out, on a regular basis. So, yeah, credit to Boxer and the fighters combined to all taking on pretty decent tasks, and no one really there is taking an easy fight, and it should be a very good night.
I think it's just going to set up. Hopefully, if they both come through, Wilder and Joshua, it will set up their matchup. There's already talks that there's talks going on for a 2-fight deal. So I think if they both come through, Parker and Wallen, then maybe that'll be on the cards, which would be decent to see. And yeah, mate, I've got no real, picks for any of them. I'm just excited to hopefully watch Liverpool beat Arsenal and then go to a pub and watch hopefully some decent matchups and some big knockouts.
Yeah, I think you'd fancy Joshua for a knockout. I think that the last fight, and it took him a bit long to get going. I think a knockout and a statement knockout in front of Wilder will be what he's aiming for. Wilder likewise. I think he's got a tougher opponent on paper to knock out. Parker's got a lot more tools, I think, in his locker than Wallen has. But I think both of them will be looking for a big knockout and looking to kind of have that. And that's what the Saudis will be looking for, a big face-off.
Yeah.
Knockouts in the ring and probably announcing that fight. I think that'll be in every promoter's mind. That'll be the showpiece. End the show. Wilder gets in there, faces off against Joshua. They announce there's going to be a fight, in March or April, whatever it is. I think that's what they're probably looking to achieve in the whole night, isn't it?
Yeah. Will be really interesting if Parker and Wallen both win and it just completely derails that whole idea of Joshua and Wilder.
What? But I'd love that as well. It is what it is. That's what boxing should be about. And
yeah.
There's a chance that one of them could easily upset the apple cart. It could easily be Joseph Wilder for me. Wilder's for all his power, he can certainly be hit. Whether Joseph Parker can stay away from Wilder, I don't think he can for 12 rounds. The fact that he's managed to take Fury on a few occasions and be probably the closest man to beating Fury. He's no joke, but I like Joseph Parker as a fighter. His game is anything, and he'll always come in and give it a good go.
Yeah, no, mate, I'm excited about it. And then the last thing which you mentioned at the start, mate, was the darts. Is it Luke Little? I think his name is
Luke Littler.
Littler, sorry. 16 at the moment. He's playing Thursday, so hopefully he gets through. He's 1-3 to beat the guy he's playing this evening, Thursday evening. Which I mean, by the time you listen to this Friday, he'll still be in the mix. He's went from being something like 100-1 to something like 9-1 to win the tournament. So, it'd be great to see a 16-year-old win the darts, wouldn't it?
Oh, mate, yeah, he's got Andrew Gilden tonight, and a very beatable opponent. Very, very beatable. Only turns up and very rarely gets past the second or third round. The show last night was incredible. Like his average was well over 100.
Yeah, over 100. Yeah.
He didn't have one leg where he threw more than 15 darts, which is absolutely insane. Insane. That's no joke. Bear in mind, to put it into context for anyone who's watching, you hear the word 9-darter. A 9-darter happens maybe once, twice, maximum in a tournament. He's throwing 2 more throws than that, if you like, or 2 more sets of darts at the most. Ridiculous. Like the standard last night and his finishing for anyone, let alone a 16-year-old, it was the performance of the tournament so far. Now the question is, his opponent last night wasn't fantastic. He didn't play poorly. We didn't really lay above on him. For a 16-year-old, we expect a 16-year-old to have resilience, maybe to come from behind or to face some setbacks is maybe a little bit unrealistic. But they levelled it at a few of the pundits last night, saying, well, what do you think he's going to be expecting now? And they all said, well, on a performance like that, you've got to be expecting to try and win the tournament because that's as good as anyone has been.
Which is mad, innit, to think about, really.
It's crazy. Me, 16-year-old, by the way, he's had one tough paper round him. My God.
Yeah, he does not look 16, does he?
No, like he wouldn't look out of place in a men's club, and you think he was like 27 or something.
Easy, yeah. And you know what, like you said at the start, it's that time of year now where no one really knows what day it is or what's going on, whether you're back in work, whether it's the weekend, whether it's a bank holiday, but the darts will get you through. It's great.
Just know they turn Sky over, with the exception of a couple of intervals in the day. The darts is on almost every day after the couple of days of madness over Christmas. So love it, absolutely love this time of the year for that reason. It just fills up my day.
What I will say, it's a bit different. I think the first time we've done it this year is Boxing Day. They've got it racing on at Aintree, which would be great. I'm going down with my dad. So, if anyone who's listening to this and is worrying, thinking about what to do on Boxing Day, get yourself down to the races and then come and say hello if you catch up with me. That's what I'll be doing on Boxing Day.
Yeah, it's good that we're playing on the 27th, I think, the night of the 27th. So I think they've probably been clever about that, and they've seen that Everton and Liverpool on their own on Boxing Day. Let's throw a race meeting on, because normally that would consume everyone, wouldn't it? You've got your people who want to stay at home and stay in the family, and then you got your people who are going to the game. And there's not much of a market then to go at, is there? But if there's no footy on, there's no live game that's on, then why not?
Yeah, no, it'd be good. Gary, mate, thanks again. I know you're mad busy with the run to Christmas, but thanks for giving me your time. Everyone who's been listening and watching, really do appreciate it. Hope you all have a boss Christmas, and we'll see you probably in that weird time before Christmas, New Year, for another show. Cheers, everyone.